Okay, we are live. We are in Likutey Moharan Torah Yud. Torah Yud is called Ve'ele Hamishpatim. And we're up to part 9, part Tet of Torah Yud. And so Rabbi Nachman does now is what he does in many of the Torahs. We've seen this many times before. And then after explaining the Torah, so then he finds a Gemara, or a Gemara, or a Zohar, or another thing, another story, or another Agadita from Chazal, or a pasuk, and he fits that Torah into the pasuk, into that Gemara, into that Agadita, into that story. So that's what he does here, and he fits it into a story with Rabbi Bar Chana from one of the Agadita Gemaras in Masechet Baba Batra. So this is the story. In Baba Batra Daf Ayin Dalid Amud Aleph. V'zeh Perush Amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar Liyahu Taya. Rabba Bar Chana said, he recounted the story that happened to him with a certain merchant. Okay, this is the merchant. Some say was Eliyahu Navi, but it doesn't matter. It was this merchant that told Rabbi Bar Chana, come and I will show you the people from Korach's generation, Korach and his family, that were swallowed up by the earth. I went and I saw these two cracks in the ground that the smoke was coming out from. Shekar Gevava de Amra Umashye Bemaya ve'anche bereje de rumche ve'ayle hata. So he took a ball of wool, okay, a big ball of wool, and he soaked it in water, okay, and then he put this ball of wool that's soaked in water on the head of his spear, and he put it by the cracks in the ground. He put it in ve'ayle hata. And when he removed it, it was completely scorched. So that's just to show you how great the fire was down there, that even this ball of wool that was absolutely soaking wet, he put it completely in water, and it was completely scorched just by putting it in that place. Okay, then Amarli, so the merchant told me, Atzit ma shemait, pay attention to listen to what's going on. Do you hear something? What do you hear? V'shim'eit dehavi amrin. So he paid attention to what was going on, what was being heard, the noise, the sound, and he heard that they were saying Moshe v'torato emet v'hen bada'in. They were saying Moshe Rabbeinu is true, Moshe Rabbeinu and his Torah are true, and we are false. Okay. Again, the literal translation "vehen bada'in" is that they are false. But many times you see this in Chazal, just like yesterday we also saw, where when someone is saying something negative about somebody, so they wouldn't say it about themselves in first person; they would say it about themselves in third person. Okay, like the negative on someone else. So "vehen bada'in," and they are false. Okay. Anyways, that's just a side point. Amarli. Kol 30 yoma mehadra lehu gehinom lehacha kebasar bekalachat ve'amri hachi Moshe v'torato emet v'hen badain. So the merchant said to me that this happens every 30 days, that wherever they are being stirred and moved, and there's a cycle that they come around every 30 days in that cycle from in that place where they are, and they're being stirred almost like meat in a pot. And every 30 days they come back to this place, this area, this part here. And every 30 days you can hear them saying the same thing. Moshe v'torato emet v'hen badain, that Moshe and his Torah are true and they are false, meaning that they are confessing that they are false. Okay, so now let's see all the parts of this story. How does it match up with the aspects in this Torah? Belu'ei de Korach, those that were swallowed up with Korach. Okay, Kedeita b'midrash, Korach min haya. Haynu b'chinat avodat elelim, minut. So Korach is the aspect of Avodah Zarah. Why? The Medrash says that. The Medrash says that Korach was a heretic, a min. Okay, and heresy is the aspect of idol worship. It's a pgam. It's a corrupted belief system. That's what idol worship is, and that's what minut, heresy, is. So Korach, the Beluay, the Korach is this aspect of, like we saw before, the aspect of Haman, the aspect of Avodah Zarah, the aspect of the Gaiva, the pride and the ego. And I saw these two cracks that from which these fumes of smoke were coming out from. כל זמן שהעבודה תרדים בעולם, חרון אף בעולם. ותראה ביזה זה בחינות טרניק והאף, שיוצא מהם מהעשן, כמו שכתוב, עלה עשן באפו. So he says that the pillars of fumes of smoke coming out from the cracks of the ground, it alludes to the kas, the divine anger, the divine wrath that is awakened when there is avodah zara, idol worship. When the belief system, the Torah belief system, the holy belief system, the emunah, the holy emunah is corrupted, and there is a concealment on the holy emunah, and in its place there is the emunah, the belief system of idol worship. So then that awakens the charon af, the anger and the wrath of Hashem, as we saw earlier in the Torah, the Gemara that says that as long as there's idol worship in the world, there is Hashem's anger in the world. Okay, so why two? Why are there two pillars of smoke? So Rabbi Nachman says that's because the wrath and the anger, as we see in the Torah, is always connected to the nostrils. And like we see in the Pasuk in Tehillim that says that smoke went up out of his nostrils, right? Ala ashan be'apo. Okay, so the nose is the part of a person's body that is connected on the one hand to the lack of patience, the kotzer ruach, which is where anger comes from, the wrath comes from there, and that's represented as smoke coming out of the nostrils. On the other hand, you have the arichut apayim. The arichut apayim is the character trait, the attribute of the divine patience and serenity. Okay, so that's why you have here, in connection and in the context of the Beluay, the Korach, those that were swallowed up with Korach, that they have the corrupted belief system of heresy, the lack of emunah, so that causes the two pillars of smoke coming out of the nose, which is the divine wrath. Hashem's wrath is revealed in the world because of that. Veshakil gvava de amra, and the merchant, he took a ball of wool. Okay, so amra, wool, in Aramaic, is called amra. Wool is called amra in Aramaic. And amra also sounds like omer. Okay, so that's the aspect of the omer that we saw before. And earlier, yesterday, we saw that there are two parts. There is Mordechai and Esther. And Mordechai is the omer, and Esther is the seorim. Okay? And there's the omer and the seorim. Omer is the measurement, the amount, and seorim is the barley. We said that omer is ayin more. Ayin is the eye to eye, the Torah that was given to us eye to eye in a revealed way, which is the revealed Torah. That's the aspect of the hands. That's the aspect of Mordechai, because more deror, and also the aspect of the hand being revealed through the hole in the crevice which is the cherut. Dodi shalach yado min achor. Chor has the same letters as the word cherut, which means free and open and revealed. And that's the aspect of the hands. That's the aspect of Mordechai. And the other aspect is the seorim, the barley, which we said kiseirim. It's like the word seirim, kiseirim aledeshe, which means the ruach, the spirit, the ruach hakodesh, which is the aspect of Esther, as we see in the Gemara that Esther beruach hakodesh neemra. Esther was written in ruach hakodesh, because the ikar ruach hakodesh, you see it, you recognize it when it affects the feet. Okay, because that's where the ikar avodah zarah is. So that's the omer and seorim. So now in this story of Rabbi Bar Chana, we have something that represents the Omer and something that represents the Seorim. The Omer is represented by this ball of wool. Wool is called Amra. Amra sounds like Omer. Amra is just the Aramaic form of the word Omer. Okay. Umashia b'maya, and he soaked it in water. So he's soaking it in water is representing, it's alluding to the barley, because, let's see, זה בחינת שעורים, בחינת אסתר ברוח הקודש, ברוח הקודש שהוא בחינת רגליים, כי הרגליים הם מפיקים מים, כי הם בחינת ערבי נחל, כמאמר חכמינו, זיכרונם לברכה, רגלוי דבנש אינון ערבין לה. ערבין זה בחינת ערבי נחל. אפיקי מים, היינו בחינת מרדכי ואסתר, בחינת ידיים ורגליים, בחינת המחאת כף וריקודים. Okay? Beautiful. Beautiful. So, says Rebbe Nachman that the feet, in Kabbalah, we know the feet represent in the sphirot, the 10 sphirot that we have in a person's body. A person's body has within it the 10 sphirot, and a person is a small world that represents the whole universe. And just like in the whole universe in general, you have the 10 sphirot, you also have in each personal world, in your personal universe, you also have the 10 sphirot. And the two legs of a person represent the Netzach and Hod. The Netzach and Hod, in the Kabbanot we see, the Kabbanot of Sukkot, and in the Zohar, it's in the Zohar. The Aravot that we have with the Lulav, okay, the Aravot that we have is representing the willow, right? The Aravot is the willow tree. It represents the Netzach and Hod. That's how we have two of them. We have the Chagat, the Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, and the three Hadassim. The Lulav represents the Yesod, the Etrog represents the Malchut, and the two Aravot, the two willow branches, represent the Netzach and Hod, which is the feet of a person. And the feet, so the feet, we said yesterday, where feet represents Esther. Esther is in the feet. Okay, that's the thighs and the feet. Now, water represents this aspect of the willow. That's what Rabbi Nachman is saying here. That the water, the aspect of water, represents the willow which grows upon the water, as it says in the pasuk, right? Arvei nachal, the willow that grows upon the stream. Okay, another name for it is the willow that grows upon the water brooks. Okay, so that's the arvei nachal. That's the aravot. That represents the feet, and that, on one hand, we have the aravot, the willow that grows upon the water. On the other hand, we have another allusion to this connection between the feet and the water, because of, as the Chachamim say, that the feet of a person are guarantors for him. Okay, what is that in the context? It's the Gemara in Mesechet Sukkah. The Gemara in Mesechet Sukkah speaks about that, but we see this word of guarantor. It also sounds like aravot. Okay, arev. Arev is a guarantor in the Lashon of the Gemara and also in Hebrew. And the feet of a person are his guarantors. There's a connection between the feet and the word aravot. And also there's the connection between the feet and water. The feet that are upon the water. Afiki mayim. Okay, they are upon the water, as the pasuk in Tehillim says. So we have a lot of connections between the water and the feet, the water and the aravot, the water and the Netzach and Hod, the water and Esther. Okay, so again, Raglayim is Afike Mayim. Raglayim is the water brooks. Okay, why? Because they are the aspect of the feet, are the aspect of the Arvei Nachal, the willows upon the water. As Chachamim also say, this connection between the feet and the willow. The feet and the willow, we see that the feet are called, the feet are guarantors of a person. A guarantor is Arvin, sounds like Arvei Nachal. And now, when we put these two things together, the wool, which is soaked, the ball of wool, which is soaked in the water, so the ball of wool, we said, represents Mordechai, and the water is representing the feet, which is the aspect of Esther. So you have the unification of this tikkun. You have the tikkun of the heart in the hands and in the feet, okay, which is clapping the hands and the dancing of the feet. The aspect of the tikkun of Mordechai with the aspect of the tikkun of Esther, drawing the Ruach HaKodesh into the hands and into the feet. But he took this ball of wool that was soaked in water, which is the aspect of Mordechai and Esther, and what did he do? He put it on the head of his spear. He put it on the head of his spear. Romach da ruach mem, shu me'arba ruchot bo yaruach, ki amem hi arba ruchot, shehi bechinat ruach hatzadik, ונשב בידיים ורגליים כנ"ל, וראש הרומח הוא הצדיק כי ממנו תוצאות הרוח. כמו שכתוב איש אשר רוח בו, כנ"ל. והפקינו, so now the spear, says Rabbi Nachman, it represents the Ruach HaKodesh of the tzaddik. The tzaddik is the one that draws the Ruach HaKodesh from the Torah, from the heart, and he draws it into the hands and into the feet. How does that, we see that in the spear. So the word for spear is Romach. Romach is the letters Ruach Mem. Ruach is the spirit, it's the Ruach. Mem is the four directions, because there are four winds. There's the eastern wind, the northern wind, the southern wind, and the western wind. Okay, these are the four directions, the four types of wind. And each direction, the wind from each direction has its special characteristic, like the Gemara speaks about. And so the tzaddik, however, the tzaddik is the Ruach HaKodesh, which is the source of all the four directions. It unifies and combines all of them within it because it's the source from which all the four winds come out of. So that's the Ruach HaKodesh of the tzaddik. And so that's represented by the head of the spear. The head of the spear is the source of the spear, where the spear comes out from. And so this is the aspect of the mem. The mem itself is the tzaddik. It's the Ruach HaKodesh of the tzaddik that includes within it all the four different directions, all the four different ruach that there is. And this is representing the letters of Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's a previous Torah that we learned how the aspect of the tzaddik is, the tzaddik represents the kotzo shel Yud, the spike at the head of the Yud. The Yud is made up of the four letters. The Yud Kei Vav Kei is made up of the four letters. And in Kabbalah, we see in the Zohar and the Arizal that it also, the source of the Yud Kei Vav Kei is the spike at the head of the Yud. And that represents the Keter. You have the 10 Sefirot and the four letters, but the Keter is alluded to and represented by the spike at the head of the Yud. And that's the aspect of the tzaddik. The aspect of the tzaddik that includes within it all the four letters of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. And that's also the tikkun of the four elements of creation, the fire and the water and the wind and the earth. The tikkun of all of them is the tzaddik, because he is the source for all of these aspects and parts and elements of the universe. So the Romach itself, the spear itself, is Ruach Mem. It's the spirit of this Mem of the tzaddik. The head of the spear is the source, it's the tip, it's the point of that spike of the Yud that includes all the different spirits within it. The Ruach HaKodesh has all the spirit, all the energy of the world included within it, because it's the source for all of it. Okay, so now what he did was he put when it says in the story that he put this ball of wool soaked in water on the head of the spear, what does that mean? That means that the Ruach HaKodesh was drawn into Mordechai and Esther from the tzaddik, from the head of the spear. That's what this part of the story is telling us. Okay, and what he did was he put the spear with the ball of soaking wool into the crack in the ground where the smoke was coming out from, and it came out and was completely scorched and burnt. So ichrach, says Rabbi Nachman, sounds like arichut yamim, leshon chayim va'arichut yamim. How do we see that it has a connotation of life and length of days, a long and healthy longevity and a healthy long life? How do we see that in the word ichrach ichruche? So there's a Gemara in Masechet Elumin. Kemamach chachaminu zichronam levracha lo yachroch remiyah tzedo. Okay, that in that pasuk it's referring to lo yachroch remiyah tzedo, lo yichyeh velo ya'arich. So there's a pasuk in Mishle. There's a pasuk in Mishle that is referring to someone that is a con man, that he will not roast his catch. So in the context in that pasuk, yachroch means to roast, means to scorch, like we see over here. But what does the Gemara say on that? He will not, about this con man, that the deceitful man, that he will not roast what he catches. Okay, the Gemara makes a drasha on that. What does it mean he will not roast what he catches? Lo yichyeh velo ya'arich. He will not live nor have length of days. Lo yichyeh velo ya'arich. So the Gemara makes a drasha on the word yachroch, the word from the pasuk in Mishle, yachroch, to mean the drasha lo yichyeh velo ya'arich. He will not live, and he will not have longevity. So we see that yachroch has a connotation of length of life and longevity. כי על ידי ביטול הגאווה, היינו עבודה זרה, על ידי זה החוכמה התיקונה כנ"ל, ועל ידי החוכמה יחיה ויאריך ימים, כמו שכתוב, החוכמה תחיה. So Rebbe Nachman makes a very simple equation, very simple formula. He says, when you take the Ruach Mem, the spear, which is the Ruach of the Tzaddik, the Ruach HaKodesh of the Tzaddik, which is found in the Torah, and you draw it into the ball of wool that's soaking in water, which is drawing it into, that Ruach HaKodesh, drawing it into Mordechai and Esther, drawing it into the hands and the feet, and like that, you dispel and you dissolve the Ruach HaTuma, the corrupted belief systems of idol worship, the gaiva, the pride, and the ego. You dispel and you dissolve it from the hands and the feet. So through that, the chokhmah of a person, okay, the divine consciousness will be complete and perfected within that person. And that chokhmah consciousness is the source of life. As we say, the pasuk in Kohelet, HaChokhmah techayed be'aleh. The chokhmah is what gives life. All life is drawn from chokhmah. All life is drawn from chokhmah. That's why also a very simple gematria. The word chacham and the word chaim have the same gematria, and not almost the same identical letters. Okay, the chacham and the chaim is life, is drawn from chokhmah. Okay, chacham, the chaf, the two yuds of chaim, each yud gematria 10 and 10 is 20, which is chaf. So chaim and chacham is the same numerical value because chaim comes from chokhmah. That's where the chaim is drawn from. Life is drawn from chokhmah. And so, when you remove the obstacles in the way of this chokhmah, this ruach hakodesh, which is drawn from the Torah, through the tzaddik, is drawn from the Torah, and from the chokhmah and the Torah, that's where it's drawn from. That's where the source of this ruach hakodesh is. And you're drawing it into the hands and into the feet. And so you're dissolving and dispelling all evil, all of the blocks for that life energy to spread. So then obviously what comes about from that is life. Life is increased tremendously. And you see that. Joy, happiness, clapping your hands and dancing is an expression of life. Right? So that's why over here, when he combined, when he drew from the Romach, the Ruach HaKodesh, into the Mordechai and Esther, into this soaking ball of wool, right, soaking in water, into the hands and into the feet, what happens is, from that is the scorched. What does it mean it's scorched? There's a lengthening and an increasing of life that comes about from this tikkun. So he told me, pay attention, listen, what do you hear? Right? So we heard that they were saying that Moshe and his Torah are true. שהן מודין על האמת. כי כשמתקרב את עצמו לצדיקים כדי לקבל מהם הרוח כנ"ל, ועל ידי זה נשבר הגאווה והעבודה זרה, ואז מכירים אפילו אלו שהם מסתרת דמותה, את גדולת הבורא יתברך שמו. So Rebbe Nachman gives us a practical application of this Torah, beautiful practical advice. He says, how do we merit this? How do we merit to draw this Ruach HaKodesh into the hands and the feet? He says, connect yourself to tzaddikim. Connect yourself to Talmidei Chachamim and tzaddikim. When you become close and you become attached and you have a bond and a relationship with the tzaddikim, you become close to them. So that's how you draw from that Ruach HaKodesh that's in the Torah, and they will help you draw it all the way into your hands and into your feet. So that's what he says here. He says that when you get close to the tzaddikim, in order to receive from the tzaddik the Ruach HaKodesh, that's where you receive the Ruach HaKodesh from the tzaddik, because the tzaddik is the head of the spear. And through that, the pride and the ego and the idol worship and the corrupted belief system is broken, it's dispelled, it's dissolved. And when that's dissolved, all the blocks that are concealing the emunah are dissolved. So then the emunah is revealed. The emunah in Hashem, the greatness of Hashem, is revealed. So he says that's what happened over here. He says that this is the next line in the story. The next line of the story is that those Beluei Koach that were swallowed up with Korach, they recognized and they admitted the truth. How do they come, these people that were idol worshippers or they had corrupted belief system, they were heretics, right? How do they come to admit the truth, to recognize the truth of Moshe and the Torah? Through the connecting themselves, drawing closer to that Ruach HaKodesh of the Tzaddik. When he put the head of the spear into the Mordechai and into Esther, and drew that Ruach HaKodesh, and he brought that tikkun all the way into the crevice, into the crack in the ground, where these people that had the idol worshippers, the heretics, where they were, just by getting close to that tikkun, to that Ruach HaKodesh, it dissolves all their corrupted belief systems, and it will cause them, even them, to admit the truth and to recognize Moshe v'Torato emet. ואמר לי, כל 30 יומים מהדרה להוגיהנום להכה ואמרי אחי, משה ותורתו אמת. And so he said to me that every Rosh Chodesh, every 30 days, they come back to the same place and they say the same thing, that Moshe and his Torah are true. And so the explanation on this last part of the story, we will continue Bezrat Hashem tomorrow or next year. Okay.